cold, mechanical hum of the workshop was usually comforting to me. The steady rhythm of machines and the precision of technology had always been a constant in my life, something I could rely on. But that day, the hum had an edge to it, a kind of harshness I hadn't noticed before. Maybe it was because I was distracted, or maybe it was just the tension I had been feeling lately in the house. Things hadn't been the same with Sarah for months now. It wasn't anything specific, just the little things. She seemed distant, less interested in our conversations, less engaged when we spent time together. I shrugged off the uneasiness as I fiddled with the new surveillance system I had installed. I was an engineer after all. This was my world: cameras, sensors, code, everything in its right place, everything functioning as expected. The surveillance system was top of the line, the kind you see in government buildings or corporate offices. I hadn't installed it because I feared something would happen. It was more of a hobby, an upgrade for the house, just another project to keep me occupied. The system allowed me to zoom in on any area around the house, even down to the road where the occasional car would park. I wasn't expecting much. Most days it was just neighbors walking their dogs or the postman making his rounds. But on that day, something different appeared on the screen: a car. It was parked just down the street, not in front of my house, but close enough that I could see it through the cameras. It wasn't unusual to see a car parked there, but this one caught my attention for some reason. It was sleek, black, with tinted windows, nothing fancy, but it wasn't from around here. I zoomed in, the clarity of the image sharpening with each adjustment. There was a man in the driver's seat, older, maybe late 40s or early 50s, graying at the temples but dressed sharp. He was alone for a moment, looking around nervously as if he was waiting for something or someone. That's when the passenger door opened. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the figure step out of the house and approach the car. At first, I couldn't believe it. I zoomed in further, adjusting the angle, trying to be sure. But there was no mistaking the familiar form, the way she moved, the way her hair cascaded down her back. It was Sarah. My heart stopped. I felt like I was watching a scene from someone else's life, some twisted nightmare unfolding in front of me. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen as Sarah slid into the passenger seat of the car. Her body language far too familiar, far too comfortable with this stranger. They were talking. The man leaned over, his hand brushing her thigh. My stomach churned as I watched Sarah laugh like she hadn't in months. Her smile, the one I used to love seeing, was now being shared with him. The camera zoomed in more, focusing on their faces, every expression painfully clear. She didn't look like the woman who had been distant and cold at home. No, this was a version of Sarah I hadn't seen in a long time, engaged, alive, glowing with a happiness that I had once thought was reserved for me. I felt the rage build up slowly, like a volcano about to erupt. Every muscle in my body tensed, and my hands clenched the arms of my chair so tightly I thought they might break. My world was collapsing around me, the foundation of everything I believed in crumbling right before my eyes. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as I continued to watch. Sarah leaned in closer to the man, her hand resting on his arm, and then she kissed him. It wasn't a quick, stolen kiss. No, this was deep, passionate, like the kind of kiss that meant something, the kind of kiss that said everything without a single word being spoken. I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to think. How long had this been going on? Had I not seen it? I thought back to all the times she had been late coming home, all the excuses about meeting friends or running errands. Was it always him? Was this why she had pulled away from me? My mind raced with 1,000 questions, but none of them had answers, not yet. I needed proof. I couldn't just confront her without knowing the full extent of it. I needed to see how deep this betrayal went, how far she had fallen from the life we had built together. So I hit the record button, saving everything to the system's hard drive. Every kiss, every touch, every deceitful smile, it was all there now. Evidence of her betrayal. But I wasn't going to act on it. Not yet. The anger boiled inside me, but I had to think. I couldn't just burst out in rage and make things worse. No, I needed to be calm. Calculated, just like I was at work. There would be time for revenge, but not now. I'd gather all the evidence I could, and when the moment was right, I'd strike. I'd make sure she knew what she had done, how she had destroyed everything, and then I'd walk away. She wouldn't even know what hit her. But for now, I just sat there, staring at the screen, watching the woman I thought I knew so well disappear into the arms of another man. And in that moment, I realized that everything was about to change. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the images from the surveillance feed replayed over and over in my mind. Sarah laughing with him, her hand on his arm, their kiss that was seared into my brain like a brand. I couldn't shake it, no matter how much I tried. Morning came far too soon. I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. My head pounded, my chest felt tight, and every muscle ached with the tension I'd been holding since the previous day. Zara was already up by the time I dragged myself out of bed. She was in the kitchen, making breakfast as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't just shattered our life together the day before. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her move around the kitchen. She looked the same soft blonde hair, same familiar shape, but now all I could see were the lies. The touches she had shared with him, the way she kissed him as though it was second nature. It made my stomach turn. "Morning," she said, glancing over her shoulder with a quick smile before turning back to the stove. I swallowed hard, forcing a neutral expression onto my face. "Morning." My voice sounded distant, hollow. I moved to sit at the table, watching as she flipped pancakes onto a plate and set them in front of me. She sat down across from me, her face cheerful, her eyes bright. It was almost cruel how normal she seemed, how unaffected she was, sitting there, completely oblivious to the fact that I knew. I pushed the food around my plate, barely able to stomach the sight of her, let alone the idea of eating. My mind was already racing, planning my next steps. I needed to keep playing it cool. I couldn't tip my hand, not yet. "So what are you up to today?" she asked casually, sipping her coffee. I shrugged, keeping my tone even, "Just work stuff. Maybe some more testing on the security system." She nodded, looking completely uninterested. "You and those gadgets," she said with a laugh. "I swear sometimes I think you love them more than me." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I forced a chuckle. "Nah, you know I love my toys." It felt like some sick game now, this exchange of empty words. Here we were, acting out the motions of a normal marriage, but I knew it was all a lie. Every second that passed, I wanted to scream at her, to demand she explain herself. But I didn't, not yet. As soon as she left the house, probably to meet him again, I went back to the workshop. I sat at the desk, staring at the screen, replaying the footage from yesterday. I needed to understand. How had I missed this? How long had it been going on? The recording played on the screen again, and I watched in grim silence as Sarah stepped into the car. So her face was clear, her expression soft as she leaned into him, her hand resting casually on his thigh, as if she'd done it 100 times before. They talked for a while, and then they kissed. It was as if she were a different person when she was with him, more alive, more carefree. So the scene continued to play out in front of me, and I felt that same surge of anger from the day before rise in my chest. But I tamped it down. I needed to stay calm. I needed to focus on the details, gather everything I could. I fast-forwarded through the footage, watching them sit together, talk and laugh. They didn't leave for nearly an hour. Eventually, the car pulled away and the screen returned to its usual feed, just a quiet street with nothing unusual. For now, I sat back, staring at the blank screen, my mind buzzing with questions. I needed to know more. One video wasn't enough. I had to figure out how long this had been going on, where they were meeting, how deep this thing went. With a grim determination, I set the system to monitor every angle, every car, and every person that came anywhere near our house. If she was going to betray me, I was going to catch her every time. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and silence. Sarah was careful, I'll give her that. She kept everything normal at home, no signs of guilt or remorse. She still smiled at me over dinner, still kissed me goodbye in the morning, still asked me about my day when we sat down in the evenings. But I could see through it all now. I knew where her mind really was. I started noticing the patterns, the subtle changes in her routine. On the days she said she was running errands or meeting a friend, she would be gone for a little longer than usual. Her phone would be on silent more often. And when she came back, there was something different about her, a faint smell of cologne that wasn't mine, a slight flush to her cheeks that she couldn't hide. Each time she left, I recorded it. Every movement, every secret rendezvous with her lover. I didn't confront her. I just kept adding to my collection, building my case. Then one day I caught a break. She had left earlier that morning, saying she was meeting an old friend for coffee. I waited a few minutes before checking the cameras, watching as she climbed into her car and drove off. I followed the feed, tracking her through the system's remote access as she made her way across town. She didn't go to any coffee shop. Instead, she drove to a small motel just on the outskirts of the city. My blood ran cold as I watched her park the car and step inside. The feed from the cameras outside the motel showed everything. A few minutes later, he pulled up. Same car, same older man, same smug smile as he walked inside after her. I knew now that this was no fling. This was an affair. A full-blown secret life she was leading right under my nose. I leaned back in my chair, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles were white. It was one thing to kiss someone in a car, but this was different. This was real, undeniable, concrete proof of what she was doing. and it made my decision that much easier. The days following my discovery felt surreal. It was like I was living two lives, balancing on a razor's edge. On the outside, everything remained the same. I still woke up next to Sarah every morning, still went to work, still came home to her warm smiles and casual conversations. But underneath that thin layer of normalcy I was seething. I kept gathering evidence bit by bit. Every time Sarah left the house, I would check the cameras. I had become obsessed with tracking her every move, piecing together the fragments of her betrayal. I knew exactly where she was going and who she was with, and it gnawed at me like a poison slowly spreading through my veins. What burned me the most was how easily she lied. Sarah had become an expert at deception, slipping into her role as my wife with such ease that it was terrifying. There wasn't a single sign of guilt in her eyes, no hesitation in her voice when she told me she loved me, no crack in the mask she wore so effortlessly. She would leave for her so-called errands or coffee with friends, and I would watch the live feed from the cameras, following her as she drove to the McDowell. It was always the same routine. She would park her car, step inside, and then a few minutes later he would arrive. The same man with that same smug look on his face, as if he owned the world. As if he owned her. My mind churned with thoughts of revenge, darker and more dangerous with each passing day. I fantasized about showing up at that motel, dragging Sarah out by her hair and confronting them both. I pictured the look on her face when she realized I knew. How would she react? Would she cry? Beg for forgiveness? Would she even care? But I didn't act. Not yet. I was waiting for the perfect moment. I wasn't going to let this blow up in a fit of rage. No, I wanted to be in control when the time came. I wanted to watch her squirm under the weight of her own life. One evening, after another one of Sarah's mysterious errand trips, she returned home with that familiar glow on her face. The kind of glow she used to have when we were newly married, back when things were still good between us. Now it was just a sick reminder of what she had with him. We sat down to dinner, the clink of silverware on plates the only sound in the room. I watched her closely as she talked about her day, about the grocery store and some friends she had bumped into, as if she hadn't just spent the last few hours wrapped in another man's arms. I felt the anger rising in my chest, threatening to boil over. I gripped my fork tightly, forcing myself to stay calm, but I was getting closer to the edge with every passing day. I could feel it. "You're quiet tonight," Sarah said, glancing up at me with a curious smile. "Everything okay?" I met her gaze, my eyes narrowing slightly as I studied her face. How did she do it? How did she lie so effortlessly? How did she sleep next to me at night, knowing what she was doing behind my back? "Just tired," I replied, my voice calm and even. "Work's been a bit much lately." She nodded sympathetically, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "You work too hard, Mike. You need to take some time for yourself." Her touch felt cold foreign. I pulled my hand away gently, masking it as a casual movement, but inside, I was disgusted. How many times had she touched him like this? How many lies had she told to keep this charade going? "I'm fine," I muttered, standing up and taking my plate to the sink. "I'm going to get some air." I didn't wait for her to respond. I needed space. I needed to think. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to bed, I sat in my workshop staring at the monitors. The surveillance footage played on a loop, the same scenes over and over, her getting into his car, walking into the motel, their bodies entwined in the parking lot. I had seen it all before, but I couldn't stop watching. I had enough evidence. Hell, I had more than enough. I could confront her right now if I wanted to, but something was still holding me back. It wasn't fear. No, fear wasn't part of this anymore. It was something deeper, something darker. I didn't just want her to know that I knew. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done, to see everything she had taken for granted crumble right in front of her eyes. I wanted her to suffer the way I had suffered watching her betray me over and over again, and I knew exactly how to do it. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through the recordings I had saved. There were dozens of videos, each one documenting her betrayal in painstaking detail. I had already backed them up to multiple drives, just in case. But this next step, it would seal her fate. With a grim smile, I began compiling the footage into one file. I took my time, carefully selecting the most damning moments, the ones that would leave no room for doubt. I wanted her to see exactly what I had seen, to feel the full force of her deceit. When I was done, I transferred the file to a flash drive. I stared at the small piece of plastic in my hand, feeling the weight of it. This was it. This was the beginning of the end. The next morning, Sarah was in the kitchen again, humming to herself as she made coffee. I watched her from the doorway, my mind racing with everything I was about to do. "Morning," she said, smiling at me over her shoulder. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile onto my face. "Hey, I've got something for you." She turned, curious, "Oh, what's that?" I held up the flash drive. "Just something I've been working on. I thought you might want to see it." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her smile faltering for a moment. "What is it?" "Just some footage from the new security system," I said casually, moving closer and holding out the drive. "You know, just in case you're curious about how it all worked." She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flicking to the drive in my hand. For a split second, I saw something in her expression, something close to fear. But it passed quickly, replaced by her usual calm demeanor. "Sure," she said, taking the drive from me. "I'll check it out later." I nodded, watching her closely. "Yeah, whenever you get a chance. Pretty interesting stuff." Sarah gave me a tight smile and tucked the drive into her pocket, then turned back to the coffee machine. I could tell she was already pushing the interaction out of her mind, dismissing it as just another one of my projects. But she had no idea what was coming. The next few days were a tense game of waiting. Every moment I spent with Sarah felt like a slow-motion nightmare, knowing that the bomb was ticking in her pocket, the flash drive just sitting there waiting to explode her perfect little world. I watched her closely, analyzing every glance, every movement, waiting for the moment she'd realize what I had handed her. But she hadn't watched it yet. I could tell. It was a quiet Friday evening when everything finally fell into place. Sarah had been running errands all afternoon, another one of her mysterious outings, while I'd spent the day in my workshop pretending to tinker with the surveillance system. By the time she got home, I was sitting at the kitchen table, nursing a cold beer and staring at nothing in particular. "Hey," she said as she came through the door, setting her bag down on the counter. "Long day?" I glanced up at her, taking in the casual way she moved, the lightness in her tone. She had no idea what was coming. "Yeah," I muttered, taking a sip of my beer. "Same old stuff." She smiled as she moved toward the fridge. "Well, I picked up some takeout. Thought we could just relax tonight." Relax? The word grated on me like nails on a chalkboard. How could she relax? How could she stand there acting like everything was normal after what she had been doing? I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Sounds good." We ate dinner in silence, the only sound in the room the clinking of forks on plates and the soft hum of the fridge. Sarah seemed content, scrolling through her phone between bites, occasionally glancing up at me with that familiar smile. But I could see the cracks in her facade now, the little hesitations, the subtle flickers of guilt that she tried so hard to hide. After dinner, she stood up and stretched. "I'm going to take a shower," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "Then maybe we can watch a movie?" I nodded absently, barely registering her words. My mind was elsewhere, already planning my next move. As soon as she disappeared down the hallway, I grabbed my phone and checked the feed from the cameras. Sure enough, her car had been at the motel again earlier that day. It was always the same routine, always the same lies. But tonight, everything was about to change. She came back from the shower half an hour later, her hair damp, dressed in one of those comfortable tank tops and pajama pants she loved to wear around the house. She looked so normal, like the Sarah I had known for years, the Sarah I had built a life with. But she wasn't that woman anymore. She was a stranger now, a liar. "You ready for that movie?" she asked, settling onto the couch and reaching for the remote. I watched her for a moment, my stomach twisting. The flash drive was still in her pocket. Maybe it was sitting on the dresser now. Forgotten, but not for long. "I'll be right back," I said, standing up and heading toward the bedroom. As soon as I was out of her sight, I found the drive sitting on the dresser, exactly where I had expected it. She hadn't watched it yet, hadn't even thought about it. Maybe she was too wrapped up in her affair to care about what I was up to. Maybe she just didn't think it was important. Well, she was about to find out how important it really was. I grabbed my laptop from the desk and plugged the drive in, opening the file. The footage played on the screen. A montage of Sarah's secret life, her betrayal in vivid detail. I watched it for a moment, my chest tightening as the scenes unfolded, the way she smiled at him, the way she touched him. It was all there, every sordid detail. I hit pause, my finger hovering over the trackpad. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the laptop and headed back to the living room. Sarah was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels aimlessly. She looked up when I entered the room, her brow furrowing in confusion as she saw the laptop in my hands. "What's that?" she asked, her voice light, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sat down across from her, placing the laptop on the coffee table between us. I opened the screen, and the frozen image of her and the man in the motel parking lot stared back at us. Sarah's face drained of color. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze, my expression cold. "It's you?" Her eyes flicked back to the screen, her breath hitching in her throat. She reached for the laptop, her fingers trembling as she clicked play. The footage began to roll. Sarah and the man standing too close to each other, their bodies pressed together as they kissed. The camera zoomed in, catching every detail, the way she leaned into him, the way her hand slid down his arm, the way she smiled after they pulled apart. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, this isn't." "Don't lie, Sarah," I said, my voice low and deadly calm. "It's all right there. Every single lie you've told me, all laid out in front of you." She stared at the screen, her eyes wide, her hand covering her mouth as the footage continued. I could see the panic rising in her, the way her breath came in short, shallow gasps. She knew there was no way out of this now. No more lies. No more excuses. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice cracking. "You could start by telling me how long it's been going on," I said, leaning forward, my eyes locked on hers. "How long, Sarah? How long have you been screwing him behind my back?" Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she shook her head. "Mike, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen." "Didn't want it to happen?" I laughed bitterly. "You sure as hell made it happen." Over and over again. She sobbed, burying her face in her hands, her body trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she choked out. "I love you, Mike. I swear I love you." "Don't say that," I snapped, the rage boiling up inside me. "You don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this." She looked up at me, her face twisted in anguish. I don't know why I did it. I was lonely. I felt like you didn't see me anymore." "Lonely?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "So you decided to fuck some random guy because you felt lonely?" "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "It wasn't about him. It was about, I don't know. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I didn't feel wanted." I stood up, pacing the room, my fists clenched. "So this is my fault now? You're blaming me for your affair?" "No," she cried, standing up and reaching for me. "Mike, please, I'm not blaming you. I don't know how it got this far. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake." I turned to face her, my eyes blazing with anger. "A mistake is spilling coffee on the floor, Sarah? What you did was deliberate. You knew exactly what you were doing every time you snuck off to meet him, every time you kissed him, touched him, fucked him." She flinched at my words, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice broken. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this," I said coldly. "Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you've been lying to me for months, maybe longer. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you've destroyed everything we had." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably, her shoulders shaking with each breath. I stood there, watching her fall apart, feeling nothing but a cold, empty satisfaction. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control. But as I looked down at her, I realized that this was only the beginning. The storm was coming, and it was going to tear everything apart. Part 5. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching Sarah unravel in front of me, her body racked with sobs. The sound of her crying filled the room, a jagged noise that cut through the heavy silence like broken glass. A part of me wanted to shout, to scream, to throw something just to make the chaos inside me match the chaos outside. But I didn't. I just stood there, my hands still clenched into tight fists, feeling the weight of it all sink deeper into my bones. She had betrayed me, destroyed the life we had built together, and yet here she was, falling apart like she was the victim. I watched her sob into her hands, gasping for breath between apologies, and I couldn't find a shred of pity. The rage was still there, simmering just beneath the surface, but something else had taken hold of me now, something colder, more calculated. I had her exactly where I wanted her. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with desperation. "Mike," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying, "please, you have to believe me. I love you. I never stopped loving you." I felt a bitter laugh rising in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "Love?" I asked, my voice hard and sharp. "You call this love?" Both. She flinched, her hand shaking as she wiped the tears from her cheeks. "I don't know how it got this far," she choked out. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was lost. I made a mistake. A huge mistake." "That's what you keep saying," I replied coldly. "A mistake. Is that what you were thinking every time you went to that motel? Every time you let him touch you?" She shook her head frantically, her hair falling in wet strands around her face. No, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it, Sarah?" I demanded, stepping closer. "What was it?" Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked broken, crumpled under the weight of her own lies, and yet I felt no sympathy. None. She had made her choices, and now she was going to live with the consequences. "You have no idea what this has done to me," I said, my voice low and steady. No idea how it felt to watch you with him, to know that every time you left this house you were going to meet him. Do you even care?" "I do," she cried, standing up suddenly, her hands reaching for me. "I care so much, Mike. I swear I didn't want to hurt you. I don't even know who I am anymore." I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Don't," I warned, my voice as cold as ice. "Don't touch me. You lost that right the moment you decided to give yourself to him." Her face crumpled again, the tears coming harder now. "I'll do anything," she sobbed. "Please, Mike, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." "Make it right?" I echoed, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "You think this is something that can be fixed?" She nodded desperately, her eyes wide with hope. "Yes, yes, we can work through this. I know we can. I love you. I never stopped loving you." I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch between us for a long moment before I spoke. "You want to fix this, Sarah?" I asked, my voice cold and calculated. "You really think there's a way to fix what you've done?" She nodded again, her eyes pleading. "Yes, please, Mike, just give me a chance." I stared at her for a long time, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the fear of losing everything she had taken for granted. And for a moment, I let her believe it. I let her think that there was still a chance that she could somehow undo the damage she had caused. But then I spoke, and my words cut through the air like a blade. "There's no fixing this," I said, my voice cold and final. "You destroyed everything, Sarah. You killed our marriage the moment you decided to open your legs for him." Her face contorted with pain, but I didn't stop. The words kept coming, sharp and vicious. "You took everything I loved, everything we built, and you tore it apart for what? Some cheap thrill? A few moments of excitement with a man who doesn't give a damn about you?" She shook her head, sobbing uncontrollably. "No, Mike, please. You're pathetic," I spat, the disgust in my voice unmistakable. "You threw away our life, our marriage, for nothing. And now you think you can just say sorry and make it all go away?" Her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry." I stood over her, watching her crumble, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something like satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I wasn't finished with her. I've been collecting everything," I said, my tone dark and measured. "Every text message, every phone call, every visit to that motel. I have all of it, Sarah. And when I'm done with you, you won't have anything left." She looked up at me, her face pale with horror. What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going to divorce you," I said coldly. "And I'm going to take everything. The house, the money, everything we've worked for. You're going to walk away with nothing. You deserve nothing." "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mike, please, you can't do this. We can still fix this. We can still." "There's no fixing this," I repeated, cutting off. "It's over. And when I'm done with you, you'll be lucky if you have anything left at all." Her sobs grew louder, more desperate, but I felt nothing. I was beyond feeling, beyond caring. "I'll file for divorce next week," I said, my voice steady and emotionless. "You can tell your lover that you're free now. Maybe he'll be happy to pick up the pieces." She collapsed onto the floor, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. But I didn't look back. I didn't feel a shred of guilt as I walked out of the room, leaving her to drown in the mess she had made. I headed straight to my workshop, where the surveillance feeds were still rolling, the empty street outside the house glowing faintly in the moonlight. I sat down at my desk, staring at the screen, feeling the weight of everything finally settle in my chest. It was over. I had seen her for what she was, and now there was nothing left. The house was quiet, except for the sound of Sarah crying somewhere in the background, her sobs muffled by the walls that now felt like they were closing in on her. I knew the reality of what was coming would hit her hard in the days ahead. The lawyer would be brutal, the divorce swift, and she would be left with nothing. And I, for the first time in weeks, felt free. As the minutes ticked by, the silence stretched longer. I sat there in my chair, staring at the darkened screen, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. This was just the beginning of the end for her, and in the end I knew I would be the one left standing. She, on the other hand, would have to live with the consequences of her betrayal for the rest of her life. And that was enough for me.